Don 2K released a video called "Can We Please Be Serious About the 2020 NBA Bubble?" Are we really gonna pause today, bro, about the NBA bubble? I feel like at this point, motherfuckers just want to crack jokes. But what is the serious conversation about the NBA bubble?
Rich Paul had something to say about the bubble discourse about a week and a half ago that I didn't have time to address. I was out of town, then 2K came out, fell by the wayside, and still I wanted to make a video about it because, well, a couple of reasons. The bubble is rapidly aging. We're about to hit the 3-year mark if we haven't already, and everything that is currently said about the bubble, about the return of basketball when we got it, are things that I said were going to take place before I ever had a clue who was gonna win. There's multiple videos I have about it on this channel, on my second channel, and here we are in the year 2023 of our Lord acting surprised about the discourse because the Lakers and LeBron James won it. So I've got to get this video off today, which has been made possible by the sponsor, DraftKings. The season has officially kicked off, and I've got some
Big draft
crazy second, or just the duration of this video at least. The NBA bubble was always going to be discredited. This may seem like a random time for that statement, unless you were hip to Rich Paul doing his media rounds recently discussing how if Steph had have won it, nobody would have said anything. I've mostly ignored narratives surrounding the bubble because A, it's a discussion with 1,000 agendas that's mostly just disingenuous chatter. B, in my eyes, if you win, you win. That goes for the 99 Spurs title, 2012 Heat, 2015 Warriors winning in 6 games, although Cleveland was down 2 stars.
Yeah, there's gonna be an asterisk for every title. And especially for a LeBron title, motherfuckers want to find out everything. You know what I'm saying? I always have the take of LeBron is easily the most hated athlete of all time. So, you know, people will find their excuses.
At the end of the day, your name is forever printed in the history books, and no matter how much anyone kicks, tosses, or screams, that's just gonna be that. Now, does that mean I view every title equally? Absolutely not. There's degrees of difficulty to a championship, each with their own extenuating circumstances. Sometimes you win a chip because you were totally expected to, and it doesn't even mean as much to the people involved as it would otherwise. See Bob Myers' comments on the Warriors 2018 title. Sometimes you win one that was agonizing, and it sticks out in history as one of the more respected ones. See Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavs. So where does that leave the 2020 bubble championship? Now that we're almost exactly 3 years removed, it's still a heavily discussed topic. Some have called it the hardest title ever won because of the extended isolation, the fact that there was nothing to focus on outside of basketball.
I think my take for the bubble is that the only thing that really kind of counters anything you can really bring up against the bubble is the fact that whatever factor you want to bring up, whether it's, shooting was elevated in the bubble because of the depth perception. I've heard that argument. You know, everyone was better because of the environment. It's essentially that. It's that first word. It applies to everyone. You know what I'm saying? So me, ultimately, I still count the bubble ring. I'm going to keep it a stack, all troll aside. Sometimes I might troll Mickey Mouse ring. But for the most part, like, I really don't have a problem with the bubble ring. The only gripe and I guess asterisk that, if anything, I would make an argument for is the fact that 2-month gap, that the NBA had in the middle of the regular season did help and hurt teams. That would be my take. I have no problem with the bubble in and of itself, but let's keep it a bean, let's keep it a buck. The Lakers are old. Right? The Lakers are led by a duo that is old and injury prone. More so, injury prone. Fuck y'all type shit. And literally every single season, aside from 2020, this team has ended up being injured in some way or fashion. I felt like the Lakers benefited a lot, from a 2-month break in the middle of the season for LeBron and AD to rest up as much as possible. I'm going to keep it a bean. However, on the flip side of it, I think a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, their momentum got hurt a lot because of this 2-month break. Because for those people who don't know, the Milwaukee Bucks at some point during the season was on pace to win like 70 games. It was on pace to win 70 games. By the tail end, right before the season was suspended, they lost. I think they lost like 2 games or some shit. So momentum slowed down a little bit. But they, for the whole season, chat, they were the favorites to win the championship. They had all of this fucking momentum. Giannis was on pace to be unanimous MVP. This, that, and the third. And then all of a sudden, all of that momentum just got halted. Season is suspended until further notice. Motherfuckers go back home. People are quarantining. They just came from a season where, you know, they were in the motion of things. Everything just goes to a full stop. And then all of a sudden, everything just goes to a full-on green light. Yo, the NBA's back on. We go into the bubble. So for a team like the Lakers, who benefited from that rest, I think they did. But for a team like the Bucks, I think, you know, it killed their momentum. It killed their momentum. So that would be my only asterisk argument when it comes to that whole season. But in terms of the actual play in the bubble, any argument you can make, it just applies to everyone else. You know what I'm saying? So.
And the out-of-body experience certain players were having that wouldn't be reproduced in a normal setting. Others argue to discredit it because of some of those same circumstances. No fans in the building, completely diluting the playoff atmosphere that literally makes the postseason what it is. The extended break that affected certain players differently. The overall open gym run feel that it had to it. Regardless of where you stand with it, I'm just here to argue that Rich Paul is wrong, especially with the example he used. Steph Curry? Are you actually being serious? As much love as he might seem to get, he is absolutely one of the more polarizing figures in sports, and to just pretend there wouldn't be a camp out there making these same arguments they make against the Lakers, that is disingenuous at best. I also disagree with Rich because one of the main arguments I had against bringing basketball back in the midst of the pandemic was that people would never view that type of championship equally. Yes, despite the fact that I don't argue to bring the Lakers title down today, everything I said would happen with this discussion 3 years later has absolutely happened, and that was before I had any clue who would win it. It could have been my Celtics at the time. I'll tag the link to the video I made back then where I essentially said that the circumstances would make it impossible to appeal to the masses in the long run, and that I really didn't see the point in coming back to play an AAU tournament brand of hoops to crown an NBA champion. So I will admit, I'm very happy they brought basketball back for that time. We needed it, and it turned out phenomenal for the most part. Even knowing that though, as it pertains to an actual champion, let's have a few chats. Starting with the teams,
do y'all think the bubble in hindsight was a good decision though? In hindsight? I feel like in hindsight, I still would have been against the bubble. I'm not gonna lie. That was like my hot take during that time. I understand it because the NBA was desperate for ratings. But I felt like at that point in time, bro, like the 2020 regular season / NBA season as a whole was already kind of fucked. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if y'all remember, but because of the fact that they wanted to end this season when they wanted it to, and because of the fact that they wanted to minimize the effects on future seasons while still having this season, what ended up happening was this season was like, you know, had all the asterisks that it had. And then in 2021 was a shortened season. 2021 only had like, what, 72 games instead of 82? Or 71 or some shit? So my whole argument during that time was, yo, I ain't gonna lie, let's just chop up this season. All right? There is a world pandemic going on. All right? For a lot of people, basketball is the last thing on their fucking minds. These players are athletes with families and, you know, they're people. These players are people with families. Send them the fuck back home. And once things loosen up, let's just restart the regular season from the top and minimize the amount of total seasons that actually get affected. That was always my argument. But ultimately, I don't think it was, you know, a hill to die on. So
I need you to turn your brain back to how you thought about the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets back in 2020. This argument is much harder to make today, seeing as how they literally just finished an NBA Finals in the outside world, but again, I'm taking you back to 2020. We viewed these teams in a totally different light. The Miami Heat were a squad that few believed were really an NBA Finals team yet. It wasn't that far removed from Jimmy Butler being discussed as one of the worst offseason signings somehow, and they were fresh off of what was deemed as an upset of the Milwaukee Bucks, who were in their second year of legitimate title expectations.
That is funny though. I remember when Jimmy Butler I remember when Jimmy Butler signed to the Heat, and like a lot of people actually was not a big fan of the move. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't really a big fan of the move until I saw the vision, because my whole argument was, yo, Jimmy Butler is leaving the Sixers, and you would think at this point in his career he would want to go to a championship contender and go to a situation where he can win for a championship and have the best odds of doing that. For him to go to the Miami Heat, which at the time Bam was still relatively unproven, still a young team, great coach, but you know, at the end of the day, like Jimmy Butler was low-key in a similar situation as to when he was like in Minnesota. So I thought it was a bad move for him, but for the move to turn out the way that it has, though, congratulations to the Heat and Jimmy Butler.
Story short, the 2020 Heat making the NBA Finals was a possibility before the season got cut, but not an overwhelmingly likely one that people would safely bet on. As far as the Nuggets, the world was still being introduced.
Jokic been doing that shit, bro. Look at that shit.
Not won an MVP yet, as fans were still figuring out how good he really was, and they had just been upset by a Blazers team the year before in the second round after being a second seed. This was at a time when a quiet sector of fans were trying to sell the world on this upcoming team, causing them to look like pretenders because nobody ever believed in the Blazers. The trade Dame chance had already started by then. I say all this to say, getting the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets in the 2020 NBA Finals was a joke compared to how we view it today. If I could compare it, it'd be fairly similar to if we just gotten, I don't know, the Kings and Cavs this June. In a couple of years, that really might make sense. Today, that's premature. So, okay, now imagine today's Kings and Cavs.
Kings and Cavs.
But it's in a bubble environment. I want to know who genuinely believes that series and winner doesn't get discredited. That series would be laughed out of Disney the same exact way anyone would have done the Heat and Nuggets in 2020. I'm using them as one hypothetical to show.
Bruh, I'm on the way home right now. Am I late for Val? No, you are not, my guy. We're starting at 4. We're starting at 4 right after this video.
Why I'm not buying what Rich Paul is selling, because I saw these conversations coming way back then, and I just do not believe this group can't come to see how anyone would have gotten these narratives. None of this is to say that LeBron
is gonna be in the Discord
standard. At the end of the day, that's what Rich was getting at, I believe. And yes, that's true. He is held to the GOAT standard that he himself has set in the media multiple times. That goes from entering the league with a chosen one tattoo, calling himself the best player in the world unprovoked in interviews, and also calling himself the greatest of all time unprovoked. You should feel like you're the greatest, so it's okay, but when your media mouthpieces have to run through different mediums complaining about the standards while using unserious talking points, it's just not that good of a look to me. Still, I'll give you this one. If the Miami Heat would have won in 2020, oh yeah, they would have been on Braun and the Lakers' heads crazy for losing that. For a couple of reasons, I might add. Once again, the 2020 Miami Heat were one of those teams that nobody took all the way seriously until they did. Even with that,
same thing with the Heat last season.
Lakers because of it, and it would have been the second time LeBron lost as the favorite. That means in a world where the Heat upset the Lakers in the bubble, yeah, I see LeBron getting cooked. The Heat getting praised for upsetting multiple teams, yet still some acknowledgement that these were not normal circumstances and that they never had to win a road game in Staples Center per se. Speaking of which, that relates to an event that directly impacts the view of 2020. Do you recall the Nuggets coming back from 2 3-1 deficits in consecutive series? Do you know how many times that's happened in history?
I forgot
Never.
that.
None. And there's a reason for that.
I forgot that shit,
One
man.
does not simply just come back down 3-1. I mean,
damn, that was crazy.
Barely. It's only happened 13 times in history, and 5 of those have come since 2015.
That is crazy. What the fuck?
It's not a disrespectful thing to the Nuggets, but I cannot in good faith argue that in a normal playoff setting, they overcome that feat to the Jazz in round 1. And
also, I do wonder, like, I wonder what Jamal Murray versus Donovan Mitchell would have been in a non-bubble setting. Because I need to remind y'all, like, what numbers these guys were putting up, bro. Because that shit was fucking insane, chat. That shit was insane. That shit was insane. Hold on. Is this one? Jamal Murray this series averaged 32, 6 and 6 on 55, 53, 92. And then Donovan Mitchell was averaging 36, 5, and 5 on 52, 52, 95. These motherfuckers dead ass could not miss for a whole 7-game series, bro. Like, that shit was wild.
Then immediately run that same script back against the Clippers with Game 7 on the road. I can be convinced they would have done one of those in the real world. Both, again, there's a reason it didn't happen until the playoff atmosphere was subtracted from the equation. So you look at this and say, yes, there was a champion that will always be a champion crowned in the NBA bubble. Still, when you just think about all the weird things that happen, there needs to be some acceptance that for a lot of fans, it's just never going to be looked at the same. Very much like how nobody talks about the '99 Spurs championship. When do you ever hear anybody praising that title? It was a dramatically short season.
Shout out to Dom, man. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like I poisoned Dom. Hey, Chad, I ain't gonna lie. I feel like I poisoned Dom, man. This is the second video he's talked about. Hey, man, who the fuck really talks about them Spurs championship, man? I ain't gonna lie. I also forgot he made this video right here. Hold on. I need to bring this shit up, man. Hold on, man. Cause he deadass made this video. Hold on. This shit right here. Watch that shit, chat. I'm just saying, watch that shit. Watch that shit, man.
Imagine the Heat winning 2020 and still losing 2023. They'd get that same treatment. It's okay to feel like the bubble was hard and rank it where you rank it, but for Rich Paul and anyone who agrees, just please be serious. Winning that title was a setup from the beginning. They'd have found a way to trash anybody who won it. I agree that LeBron, just being the figure that he is, hears more noise than the regular player like Jimmy Butler would. That's where I would advise you to listen out for the next time that he wins one, if there is a next time. I guarantee there will be some mention that he wanted to get it done in purple and gold in a regular setting, which should then in turn set the record straight that he hears the chatter and actually takes it somewhat seriously. And yes, there is a difference. Skip Bayless has been infinite chatter throughout his entire career. LeBron and LeBron's camp have acknowledged him a grand total of 0 times. Rich Paul is not only out here talking about this.
That is funny though. The fact that Skip Bayless has been talking shit for literally 20 years, and LeBron and his camp have literally acknowledged him. Like, I don't know of a time where LeBron has even said the name Skip Bayless. Like, it's kind of crazy.
3 years later, he's dragging Steph into it, and he could have for sure used a better example.
Alright, chat. Shout out to Dom2K for the video. You see what I'm saying? Go ahead and check the link in the description if you want to watch the video for yourself. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's gaming hour!